Welcome to Life, Biz, and all that jazz. I'm your host, Jasmine Lachado, and if you're new here, welcome to the family. I'm so excited to have you here and get ready to embark on the first step of your transformation. Or maybe you're in the middle of your transformation. Wherever you are, you're so welcome here. If you've come back for more, thank you. Thank you for coming back and trusting in my vision and seeing my message. I really appreciate that you've come back for more, and I'm so excited to share today's episode with you. Before we begin today's episode, I do need to advise you of a quick trigger warning. So there will be some discussions of domestic violence and emotional abuse in today's episode. I did just want to let you know that you can take breaks at any time. Be kind to yourself. If this is triggering, you can always pause it and come back to it later. And just remember that your well-being is what needs to be put first. Today's episode, we're going to be exploring the quiet side of domestic violence, the kind that leaves no bruises but still deeply impacts the soul. Guest today is Regina. She is a survivor of child abuse and also 23 years of narcissistic relationship. Now, Regina is the founder of Alimonia Life, a speaker, an author, and an advocate for healing. I'm so excited for you to be able to see how much she's changed her life and what she used, the tools she used, and how she got to where she is today. So if you've ever questioned your worth or felt stuck in silence, this episode is a reminder that it's never too late to begin again. Welcome, Regina. It's so great to have you on Life, Biz, and all that jazz today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?
I'm really, really well. I had a busy morning. It's only early here in Australia, so kind of just starting my day. I've already told my audience about you, a little bit of your backstory, but that's from my perspective of what we've had a chat about. So I'd really love for you to dive in now. And one thing that you said at the beginning was that it took you a few attempts to leave. So can you take us back to what life looked like before you decided to leave and before you decided to, embark on your journey?
Okay. So I was in a 23-year marriage shadowed by narcissistic abuse. I felt isolated. My abuse was financial, emotional, and verbal. And like I said, I felt isolated. I felt alone. I had no one to talk to. And even when I did try to open up to a few people, because narcissists have an amazing way of placing your support system in the palm of their hands, no one believed me. So, which caused me to go further into myself and to feel just lost and alone. And I struggled terribly. I think the day that changed it all for me was I was at home. My mom was over visiting, and I was unloading the dishwasher. And as I began to put the dishes away, I started throwing them. And my mom was stunned, and she got up. She came over to me and just grabbed me, and we ended up on the floor. And that was the moment that I shared with my mom what was actually going on to me and in my marriage. And I was grateful for that breakdown because that was the beginning of me getting the help that I needed.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think one of the things that I see most common with abuse and narcissistic abuse is that it's very hidden. Like you said, like people don't know about it till it gets to a point where it kind of gets to a breaking point. Is that how you felt? Did you feel like, like obviously what you just said then, you got to a point where it was just you let it all out? Why do you think it's so hard for people to share in that situation? What do you feel like it was shame or guilt? Or
It was shame, it was guilt. I was living what most people believe to be a fairy tale life. I had the big home and the custom luxury vehicles, and my kids went to good schools. So I was living this life that looked great from the outside and was in shambles on the inside. And so it's really difficult. It was a really difficult hurdle for me to get over because people envied my life, not knowing the weight of the life that I was living.
Did you feel, and obviously a lot of things would have come up for you, did you feel like, because you had it all, you had, like you said, that picture perfect life, it would have been also harder for you to sustain that with everything going on behind the scenes? When did you feel like you noticed that it was like real abuse? What other signs did you notice before? Because you said that it got to a certain time before you shared that with your mother, but was there certain
Right.
things that come up that you started to question and think, this just doesn't seem right, or comparing it to other relationships or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it was maybe about 6 or 7 years prior to that. So about halfway through the marriage, I was struggling with the reality of things and wanting to sit down and talk with him about how things were going and believing that we needed therapy. So we did go to therapy at that time, but I don't believe that the therapist was the person to truly help us because I saw in some ways he had manipulated the therapist, and there were times when I would have to point it out. This what he's saying now is inconsistent to what he said 2 sessions ago. And so this therapist was ill equipped to handle a narcissist.
I think one thing with narcissists, and what I've learnt from my experiences in relationships, and I think for me it was quite short and I did notice signs, and I obviously it was like I said, shortest situations, didn't have kids involved, wasn't married, so it does make it a little bit easier to leave. But I remember one time I was talking, and I've had even a covert narcissist boss, and I thought I was going crazy because I was seeing all these things and I was such a good worker, it was my career. Then I really had to step back and speak to someone, and I was fortunately lucky that the person I spoke with was quite understanding. But I have heard in other situations where they turn everyone around against you, and for you to have to approach and want to go to therapy, that would have already been quite a hard topic to bring up. And then getting there and feeling like it wasn't working, or he was manipulating them as well, that would have been quite difficult. I think with therapy, I think there's certain ways we can go. For me, I'm more of like holistic spiritual type. I've been to therapy for other mental health issues, and I think sometimes it's good and then sometimes it's bad, but it also does take sometimes more than one therapist to be able to find it, but we often don't have the time to do that, which is
Right.
unfortunate. And if maybe like we could make up some type of, what's the word I'm looking for, like directory that to support other people. That's obviously
Right.
it's always confidential
Right.
when you talk about stuff like that, but yeah, I think it can be quite hard to get the help. And once you spoke to your mother, what was the next phases for you to move forward? She would have been,
Oh,
I'm assuming, very supportive and.
she was supportive, but she was also under the spell
Mm,
of the narcissist. So it was difficult for her to understand what I was saying to her even that day. And so I had to help her get closer to where I was in the situation. So I picked up my phone and showed her the recent text messages that he sent to me about that were negative. And it totally blew her mind because she didn't know him to be that way because I was the cleanup person. I always came behind him cleaning up all the messes, holding everything in that he had done. So that was one of the first moments to where I was done cleaning up.
and it makes it so much harder when everyone around you, if they push you away. Did you find that he pushed you away from like friends and family? Did he make you like say like negative things and make you think differently about your relationships or who you were as offering to those relationships?
He definitely had a lot of negative things to say about everyone in my life, wanting me to isolate myself. But I did it not because I believe what he said. I did it because I didn't want the people in my life to suffer the way that I was.
Mm.
I didn't want them to hear or to find out or to come over and then witness this person that they didn't know anything about, because they're really good at wearing their mask or their facade outside the home. But in the home is kind of their space to just let it all out. So I found that when people did come over, it was very, very uncomfortable. I was on pins and needles, and then I had to hear about everything they did or they didn't do while they were there. So it became more comfortable for me to not have to experience it. So I stopped inviting people over and started meeting them out.
Oh, yeah, that would have been hard because I'm sure you would have loved having people at your home and celebrating and hosting. And did anyone notice anything? Did any of your friends see anything, or they kind of just thought it was?
Some of my close friends, I shared some things with them, so they were aware, but they didn't know how to help me other than to listen and be supportive in that way, and just, let me know that they were there for me. But it was a decision that I had to come to on my own.
And only you would know exactly what you're going through. Only you would know the pain and, everything that you went through personally. So it's also hard for other people to understand. Even if someone's been through something similar, we all have our own journey and our own
Threshold.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So when you decided this was it, I couldn't deal with this anymore, what did the first few weeks look like for you?
Well, after that initial dish throwing breakdown, I entered therapy. I saw 5 therapists
Oh,
from that
okay.
point until now, just recently, ended my therapy with my 5th therapist. But I got into therapy, was doing really well. Within that year, I filed for divorce and struggling with the thought of being selfish, breaking up my family. He begged me to stay. And I said, okay, then we have to see a psychologist. That, was one of my requirements. And we did for 4 years. And this guy was amazing. He really was. And I believe that he was the person to help us fix things. And I went into it with the mindset of we're going to fix everything. And for 4 years, we went one step forward, two steps backward. And then I remember some point during a session that I had with the therapist alone, he asked me, what would I do if he didn't change? And that thought had not entered my mind, and I didn't know how to answer that question. So I sat with it for about a minute, and then I looked up and I said, then I'll have to leave because I'm worth more than that. And that became the soundtrack in my head over and over and over again until after that, I made the decision to the 4th year, I decided to go alone. So I went another year by myself to gear up for what I knew was necessary for my life and my happiness and my peace. And I filed for divorce second time, had the therapist come to the house, and we sat in a session, and I told him why I was leaving, and I gave him examples for each reason.
So yeah, you really made a plan to back everything up. And how did that conversation go? You obviously discuss as much as you want to discuss.
I was really happy that I made the decision to have the therapist come, because having a conversation with him by myself was impossible. And I did not plan to be dissuaded or put down anymore. And I needed the therapist there to keep things on track so that I could say everything that I had written down to say. And it took 2 sessions. And by the second session, I was more determined to move on with my life. I felt stuck for 23 years, and it had been enough for me.
Yeah, you knew you deserved more. And I think that
Yeah.
sounds like where you got to, as you were saying with the therapy towards the end, you could see that, and you would have been building up that, self-love again and confidence and respect that you had for yourself. That unfortunately that's what they tear down, like what really goes. And it's nobody's fault that you let yourself get to that position. It's the compound of everything. And I think that's where this conversation is really important, because a lot of women women can blame themselves, do you find, in situations like this? It's, you know, they stay and then they try and make it work and go back, and it's just it's a cycle. And once you do break free, you see it's like a flower blossoming, you know, like a flower's just been there, hasn't been able to bloom, like a rosebud, it's just sitting, and then the rose blooms, because it's an unfortunate thing that women, I think, go through, and also men, like everyone goes through this. It's not just women. And I think coming out the other side is where you get to shine probably a little bit more than you did before. Do you feel that?
Right.
Who you are now?
Absolutely, because I had a very traumatic childhood. That's how I ended up in this situation. So, in my book, I talk about feeling like a hostage for most of my life, and to finally reach a point to where I was free and I could make decisions for myself and I could do what I wanted to do whenever I felt like it. Um, there was just so much happiness and peace that came because now I could parent from a place of peace and enjoy my relationships with my family and friends that I had an amazing opportunity to repair and chart a new course for my life.
And bring joy back. Have that joy,
Yeah,
which is very simple. It's a simple word. We don't realize how much we miss it until we have it back in our lives. And it can be just doing simple things and finding joy in the simple things again, because, you know, our body resets, our nervous system's able to relax and live how we desire to live. One thing I wanted to touch on is when you first did leave, and it could have been a few months or years, did you feel like, in a sense, like a weight would have lifted off your shoulder? Often when we leave a traumatic situation or overcome trauma, even if it's, you know, years, or it depends, any type of trauma, once we release ourselves from that situation, our nervous system can kind of go into a little bit of shock and can sometimes get a little bit worse. Or what I
yeah,
find for me was, once I left a high stress, toxic environment, I just was really tired, because I felt like my nervous system had been at that high peak all the time and
yeah.
rushed, like constantly on fight or flight. And then when I was out of it, it was just like my whole body was just releasing all this stress.
Toxins.
Yeah, well, toxins. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My situation was interesting in
Mm.
that it was a blessing and a curse. I filed in January of 20, and March, COVID hit. So I ended up, by choice, stuck in the house with him for 5 months.
Yes. Okay.
And the kids were home, the dog, and we were all there. And I was trying to survive as best as I could in the situation, but I didn't want to rush out and move somewhere that was going to be temporary or exactly where I wanted to be. So I took the time to find my place of peace. Thankful that I found it. But during that 5 month period, I had to create a world for myself in there, switched my life upside down in that I would take my shower late at night and I would do things in the night when the house was quiet, and I would sleep late and I would order wine and I put a tent in the backyard and a fan and music, and I created a world that I could survive in. And then most people would see that, all of that. And initially, I felt like I must be the most unlucky person alive to file for divorce and then have this happen. But one day I was thinking about it and I realized that I had been given the gift of time, because most times people go through stressful situations like divorce or some type of life altering event, but they have to carry on with work and social life and everything else. And for me, I choose to look at it as the world coming to a halt, because I got the chance to sit down and plan out every aspect of my new life in peace.
That's a really positive way to frame it now as well. You're looking back and it happened how it was supposed to happen. And
Yeah.
time, we don't appreciate how much time helps healing. And I think if you can really sit in it and take the time and, like you said, not have to rush and just get back on with things, because most of the times we do have to. This thing I'll briefly touch on with similar thing, it's more relating to grief, but I recently lost my dog of 16 years, and she was my child, my baby, like everything. I don't know if you're a real dog person, but for me, like, she came with me everywhere. And
Yeah.
this, now I work for myself. Losing her, I got to kind of just step back and take some time and really go through it. And I also don't drink alcohol anymore. Going back 8 years ago, and it's a very different loss. Like, I lost my father, well, 9 years ago. I had to just get back to life, and obviously a lot more harder losing my dad, and it was quite a traumatic experience. But I didn't get time to grieve, and it took me longer to go through that, which it should. It's my dad, so yeah, and obviously your situation is a little bit different, but just kind of explain it so people understand that time is so important when we are going through hard times, and to be able to give ourselves grace and to be able to really sit in it and let it all unfold without having to rush it and push it down. Because I find if you do, it comes back in later in life. You could just push it down in your nervous system, and your subconscious just doesn't know what's going on, but could come out in other different things. So yeah, it was so beautiful the way that you explained that. Like, you had your little tent, and I was just getting really emotional because I was putting myself in that, and I think you would have just had this little safe haven, and that's how you got through
That's
it.
how I survived that moment.
Mm.
It was beautiful. When I look back on it, it was
Mm.
a special time because I was launching my new life in this space where everything just slowed down. And I didn't have to rush to make a decision. I could just take it all in and decide how I wanted things to be. And I started to journal about what my new life would look like and feel like, and what it was that I wanted for my life. And it became the blueprint for the life that I live now.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I love journaling. I think journaling's so important, and journaling got me through so many difficult times. And I often add journal prompts to my show notes and stuff like that when I'm discussing journaling, because it's not an easy practice to follow if you're not used to doing it or you haven't done it before. Because sometimes I want to journal every day, and then I go through phases where I won't journal every day. I'll just kind of like brain dump at the end of the day. And instead of it being a nice journaling, mind healing process, it kind of becomes a bit more about things I've got to do the next day. So then it's really reverting back and making sure that it's quite beneficial. Did you find once you started to journal, like you said, you will journal in your new life, you start to believe, this is what I'm deserving of. I can have this. If I can dream it, I can create it. What do you think about that term?
Absolutely. It was like forecasting.
Mm.
Forecasting my event. I also use journaling to dispel the negativity that was coming at me. Your failure, your divorce, you're going to be alone, all of those things that started to show up. They're normal, but it's not normal to hold hands with them. I had to break them down and understand the truth. And I'm not lonely. I have lots of people in my life. Most importantly, I have my kids, and they love me tremendously. And I have my friends, and my friends who I was repairing relationships with, who had the opportunity to understand why I made certain decisions, that it had nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, whatever came to my mind, I had a journaling app on my phone that had its own passcode. It was always with me, so I could always offload whatever was going on in my head, was bouncing off put it into my journal. And it became this amazing tool for healing. But in addition to that, it became a record, a log of the work that I was doing. So it was nice to look back on it and see my growth and see the work that I was putting in.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No, it doesn't.
I think it's so important to, like, just having this conversation with you now, and what we share. And other lots of conversations. I think the more people can share about their journeys, and it's not easy to share, but you don't realize how many people will relate to you and how many people you could help, because some people don't have the support network. So you've got that. I'm very grateful that I have that. But another thing I find as well is we don't necessarily reach out to our loved ones or friends, anyone, when we are in the thick of it, because a lot of the times we don't want to burden them. And that was
Right.
something that how I felt is, and it's not easy. So having people that they can listen to, like with podcast or online or books or anything like that, is one step, I guess, to helping them. But
It's a
also,
lifeline.
yeah, and it's also continuous for our journey. I think is sharing. For me, doing this podcast is therapy for me. It's just something that I can give back and connect with other people and like-minded people. It's just sharing and journaling and documenting your process. It's just so powerful to then look back, and then once you do have a few years and you do look back and see, wow, look how far I've come. I think that's when something sparks in you that you want to do more. You want to share that. And I think we often go through situations for a reason, to be able to give back and have that higher calling for life. So
Absolutely.
once you were obviously moving through and you did leave, your situation, as you said, was very different, but you used it the best you could in the positive way. Did you get to a point where you thought, I don't know who I am without the relationship? How did you, and if you did feel like that, how did you start to break apart who you were and who your new life was going to be? You mentioned journaling, but how did that kind of all come together for you?
Um, During the end of the marriage, I think I did a good job of separating myself mentally from my marriage and doing the work on myself. So leaving the marriage and, moving out, I think I was definitely sad because that was a major, more than really half of my life at that point that I had been with this person, and we had built this life that I now had to dismantle. So it was a challenge, but like I said, I feel like I did toward the end of the marriage, I did a lot of work to help myself prepare. And I knew that this was one of the most important decisions that I had ever made, and that I had to stick to that idea that I was doing what was best for me, not only me, but for my kids, because we all come into life with a purpose. We're all designed uh, for a mission, and we have specific gifts. And anytime you're in a relationship that stifles those gifts and that mission and that purpose within you, you have an obligation to restore that.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a powerful way to put it. Thank you for sharing that. So you've come through this, and for me, I think I'm forever learning. I'm forever going to be growing to who I am. What inspired you to turn your own healing into a mission to help others?
Well, like I said, I was journaling
Mm-hmm.
a lot. And one of my friends who was divorced and had written a book, I let her read some of my journal entries. And she said, "Have you thought about writing a book?" And I said, "No, at this time, I feel like I want to start a blog." So immediately after that conversation, because I feel like conversations and things come to us, but then when they're confirmed by other people around you, then it's time to get into action. So um, I went to work shortly after moving out. I contacted someone about helping me with the blog, and it would take a couple of people to come on. And eventually, one of my friends came on as a consultant, and she she helped me to launch Alimonia Life, which was about 6 months after moving out that I launched Alimonia Life divorce blog. And I was doing the writing myself eventually. I found 3 other writers, and now I'm up to 4 writers. We're all divorced. We all write on the various topics of divorce. I was advised to create a private community for the divorce blog, which I'm so proud of because it's on a secured network. It's not linked to social media. So people have the ability to come in and get the blog posts, morning motivation, songs, videos, articles, and things that I find that are helpful for people who are struggling, contemplating divorce, going through divorce, or challenged on the other side. So, yeah.
Wow, that's great. Having it separate, I think that's really important. What you mentioned is having it separate from social media. It's not necessarily going to link anything if you are on social media, and especially if people are, navigating the decision to leave. The last thing that they want to have is anything like that could
Right,
attach it because the
right,
Facebook groups and
right,
stuff. Yeah, so it's very
right, right.
private.
And they can create they can create a name, initials, or whatever they want for their profile.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really happy about that space. And I host it and I interact with people
Yeah, so you're on there every day interacting,
every day,
and it sounds really
every
good. Like
day.
more, you said something about like morning motivation.
Motivations. Yeah,
Yes. I think the start of someone's decision or whichever stage they are in the journey, the morning is a very powerful time. That's where we really set the intentions for the whole day. And even my thing is not to look at my phone until I've started my morning. I've done some journaling. I've kind of like had some fresh air because I find if I do, my brain will just be too all over the place all day. It's just little things like that. So that's obviously my side of things. So for you, what would be some advice that you'd give someone for their morning? Kind of give us a little sneak peek to what you share in the community.
it's typically like it's the first thing I do in the morning when I wake up.
Mm-hmm.
I contemplate the lesson that I learned in the last 24 hours.
Wow.
And so I create a meme for that, and then I put a little message with it as well.
Oh, that's lovely. And it's visual. I think that's important as well, having something visual and then the phrase as well. So you're now a life coach and
I'm a life coach.
you're a life coach and speaker. Obviously, while you were going through it all, in the thick of it, you would have had fear. And now do you find going back to how you felt then you use that as your power to really come through and to share that and help others?
Absolutely, because every situation we go through, it's all about our perspective. It's all about how we view it. It's how we take it and turn it into fuel that matters. Everything. So I'm grateful for everything that has happened to me. And I want to look at the lesson in it. Maybe I was not acting in my best interest, or maybe that happened because it came to teach me something about myself or to give me the opportunity for growth, because we not only go through things, but the hope is that we grow through them as well.
Yes. And we're not given anything I think we can't handle. We usually can't see it in that situation. But then when we come through and looking back at our challenges and obstacles as not always blessings, but, things that taught us to be who we are today, I think that's really, really important. So, do you want to have a little bit of a chat about your book?
Absolutely.
Yes. So it's called The Lessons on the Way to Onesome.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I had a note to make sure I said it
I
correctly.
know.
Yeah. Because,
People often say oneness, and that, and then I have to come back and say lessons on the way to one side.
yes, I didn't want to say it wrong. So the phrase, that's something really why I put a note to write it, to read it out correctly, was onesome. I love the phrase. If you can first start off with just unpacking where onesome comes from and then dive
Okay.
into whatever you want to share with the book.
So as I was writing the book, my consultant challenged me to define onesome. I knew what it meant internally, but it was very important for me to help other people understand what that meant. So this is what I came up with. Onesome, noun, the journey back to oneself, a destination that one arrives at once one has been freed from the confines of life and has made the necessary transformation. Onesome is not a feeling of loneliness, but rather a feeling of being home within oneself.
Wow, that's amazing. Very
Thank
empowering.
you.
Yes, yes, very empowering. So we can find that the journey to being one, it can be lonely. So knowing that even though you are on the journey yourself, you're still never alone. It's finding who you are and trusting in that, yeah, you're not alone. It's even if you're just one person, you're not alone. Yeah, I really, really love that. So do you want to unpack your
Thank
book a
you.
little bit more?
Absolutely. So, in the beginning of the book, I share about the traumatic incidents that occurred in my life, my parents, to family members, to being hospitalized and being removed from my mother's custody,
Mm,
and how all of that impacted me coming into early adulthood. And I was carrying a lot of baggage at that point. So it was difficult dating and having friendships in early adulthood. So it makes complete sense that I would meet and fall in love with a narcissist, and that I would struggle through marriage for 23 years, unable to leave. So I talk about all of the traumatic incidents in my life, what I learned from them, and how I use them today for positive, and what I understood about the people in my life who were bringing trauma to me. I looked at their circumstances that I was aware of. It was. Uh, eye-opening for me to understand that at this phase of my life, I made decisions based on where I'd been, what I'd been through. So it only made sense that I would understand that for other people in my life who had harmed me, that they too had gone through um, trauma themselves. It doesn't relieve them of what they did or what they didn't do, but it helps me to understand them because I too can understand myself and my own decisions, and I can have peace with that. But I talk about the marriage and the issues that I dealt with there. Some I just wanted to touch on that a little bit to give a clear view of what it was like for me.
mm-hmm.
And I talk about friendships and family members and the impact of the divorce on those relationships. I talk about therapy and the 5 therapists that I went to and how those interactions and sessions impacted me. I just, whatever lessons I learned on this journey, I poured it into this book, the importance of dating yourself and finding peace and giving grace and forgiveness. Anything that I use or I found beneficial to me, I poured it into this book because I wanted it to be a tool for others. But most importantly, it needed to be a tool for me. And it was, because I feel like it was a release that I needed it was the final piece of my recovery.
Yes, it sounds very powerful. It sounds very jam-packed with a lot of your journey, but then how you got through that. So I will be linking the book in the show notes for anyone that wants to have a look. And also with the community, how does that work with the community? Can anyone just, they can apply through the link or?
They can go to alimonialife.com.
Yes, I'll have that on the show notes. Yep.
Okay. They have access to the community, the blog posts. They can read about me and what I've done. They can purchase the book there, but the book is also available on Amazon and Audible.
Perfect. Perfect. I'll have all that in there as well. And I think one thing, as you mentioned, just to repeat it again, is if they want to join the community, that they don't have to have all their specific name or anything like that in there.
That's correct. You
Anonymous if
can
they need.
create a name, anonymous. You have to put something. So
Yes.
put something.
Yeah, there's certain things. Yeah.
And yeah, and it'll ask why they want to join. I'm very specific. I want people who are dealing with divorce in there, not just someone looking to learn.
Mm.
about divorce, some outside person looking to learn about divorce, but
Of course.
protective of the community for obvious reasons.
Yes, of course.
But it's
And that's the
easy
purpose of
to
it.
access.
And people that aren't be aware that it's a very difficult time. The people that are in the community, yeah, it's not something to just come in and have a look around. It's there to support and to guide
Right.
people. So we're almost finished today. We've already been chatting for a while. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention? Anything before? I've got a few wrap up questions that I like to ask, but if you've got anything else that
Okay.
you'd like to mention today?
I hope that if someone is listening and they're in a space of needing to choose themselves, that they would do that, understanding that whatever it is that they've been through and they've survived took lots of courage and strength. And that same courage and strength will show up to carry you on once you make the decision.
You're stronger than you think.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
You may have felt like you've lost all that, but once you do have the first step, and that's something important we could add to continue on with this, is what's a first step? I know everyone's first step's going to look different, but is there something that you would say for like a little gentle first step guidance for somebody that, that's thinking about this or has been thinking for a while, but just doesn't feel like there's an option to leave? Is there any little
Yes.
tips or takeaways
Yes.
that they could take from this today?
Yes, seek support, whether it's through your local abuse center or therapy or a trusted friend or family member, because you're going to need support and then you're going to need to create a plan.
And I think with that, like thinking about support, people care more than you think. They do care.
Absolutely.
It's more, I think we're more in our own head
In
that
our head.
we're gonna be burdening someone, they're gonna judge, they're gonna think this, they're gonna think that. It's like if they really care, they're gonna be there for you no matter what you're going through.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And if you hit a snag, just keep knocking on doors until you get what it is that you need. It's there. You've just got to find it and utilize it.
And I think if you feel as well, if you're listening today and you don't have anyone that you feel you can reach out to, or therapy might not be a first option, I don't know what everywhere in the world, obviously there's different circumstances when it comes to getting the help and therapy. It might be a little bit different
Yes,
for abuse or that in that way, but
yes,
here in Australia, it's actually a long waiting list to get into
yes,
therapy. So if you don't
yes,
have
it is.
anyone, I think it's trying to find people like yourself, Regina, that are
Yes,
there and sharing that support and have the tools ready to
yes,
go and
right.
guide
I
you.
also sit on the executive board for a domestic violence organization.
It's
Yeah.
really inspiring to hear everything that you've gone through, and now you're giving back, and you're not just someone that's gone through something. You're really taking that and helping other people, and that's so powerful. If you could go back to the version of you before everything started, is there anything you'd say to her now?
I would say that just hold on. Just hold on.
Mm.
Keep pushing, keep fighting, because there's something so amazing for you out there.
Oh, thank you for
Just
sharing.
hang in there.
Yeah, that's so nice. And you mentioned before you were journaling a lot. Is that something that you would recommend somebody to try and start with if possible?
Absolutely.
You also mentioned an app, a private app. For me, I just I have a notebook. I like to journal out, but I
Yes.
think in situations like that, they need
Yeah.
to have
Where it's
somewhere.
dangerous for them to have something written like that,
Yes, of course.
you can add an app to your phone
Mhm.
and create a passcode for that app,
Mhm.
and then you can journal freely
Wow, yeah, that's great.
within there, yes.
That's really important to have that space for yourself where no one else can see that. Do you
Right.
have a quote or a mantra that you live by or you like to say?
Yes, I do. One of my favorites that I created with my meme for my morning motivation is: when life hands you lemons, place them in a vase and call them decor.
Wow, I've never heard that one before.
I created it.
Yes, no, but I love, because you know the lemons, like you hear lemons make tequila, lemonade, all this stuff. That's such a different way to put it. That's amazing. Mine's progress, not perfection. That's what I've always,
Yeah.
that's what I always find is, for me, I've always had the perfectionist try to be perfect with everything, and that also stems back from childhood and trying to be seen and everything. So yeah, that's something I like to share at the end, because everyone has a different mantra, and you look at yours. I just love yours. That's great. That's so good. So I will be linking all Regina's details in the show notes. You can get in contact with her. So the main way to contact you would be through the website. That's your first point
Yes.
of contact. You got your links for everything on there?
Everything is there. Alimonia Life.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure to have you on. You've really shared some really insightful and meaningful discussions. I think we've had that not only will help people in the journey now, but also maybe spark some thinking of, is this right, what I'm dealing with? And also help them to understand that it's not just in their head a lot of the times,
Right.
and people
Right.
can make them feel that way.
And I hope that people who are not in those situations would have listened to our conversation today and maybe have some thoughts about the people in their circle
Yes, that's great. That's a very
who
good point.
maybe have pulled away.
Yes, that's very powerful, because not only do you need to be relating to a situation personally, but you can take so much from these conversations to help others. And that's something that I really pride with the podcast, is to share a lot of different topics, because everyone's going through something, and it's not necessarily that you're going through it, it's that you can help somebody else get through it. All right. Thanks again, Regina. It's been a pleasure having you on today. And everyone
Thank you
else, I
so
will
much,
see you
Jasmine.
next week.